Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with a very good friend of mine, Trevor O'Rourke. He's actually the first guy who ever taught me how to sell back in a cell phone company. I think that was 8 years ago.
It's a long time ago.
It was a little while ago, and so we've been really good friends ever since then. And Trevor has really got an incredible story to share with you. You know, from humble beginnings to being a big shot with a giant global conglomerate company, and he's made a lot of traction, and he's someone who really can take apart the whole sales process and just deconstruct it into little tiny bits of adjustments that he can work on. And I know that because that's what he did to help me get better at sales. And so I'm going to get him to share his story. So Trevor, if you could just tell your story, where you came from, what got you into a leadership position, what kind of happened in your life there to make that happen?
Sure. Well, I mean, if anyone that I grew up with grew up with me as a child, probably wouldn't say I see that guy as being a leader one day. So it was definitely a transformative change that happened somewhere along in my career where I had one decision about the path I was going to go down, which was more in graphic design and advertising and art. That was kind of my thing. And it was paying for that school with part-time jobs and whatnot that I guess other leaders recognized leadership in me and started to give me opportunities and chances. And I took these opportunities and chances and I thought, hey, these guys are crazy, but sure, I mean, the pay is more, why not, right?
Yeah.
So then after a couple of years, I started realizing, hey, this is kind of fun. People actually listen to me, and I feel like I'm actually having some kind of influence.
Yeah.
And I think that was my first love with leadership was realizing, like, wait a second, I can actually impact multiple people here, and I can do great things with just a few key messages. So fast forward into, I decided not to do the art thing and the graphic design thing. Otherwise, I'd probably be poor by now. I worked for multiple companies over the years in leadership positions and rested where I am today in a regional management position where I look after 11 great leaders. I also design training programs for future regional managers for the company. So,
wow.
Along the way, a lot of exposure to sales and a lot of exposure to leadership.
Wow.
For sure.
Awesome. In that journey, life happens, life gets real. What were some of the outside of the things that can distract us and kind of hold us back? What were some of the biggest challenges and adversities that you went through, and what did you use to get through those times so that you could keep performing and being on top?
I think generally speaking, anyone in a leadership position, especially when they're young, comes across a lot of moments where they doubt themselves, especially when they come across their first, no, I'm not going to listen to you, or I don't like the way you speak, I don't like the way you look, and you start to doubt yourself as a person, especially as a young leader. And those are the small things earlier in the career, and as you get more experience and you thicken your skin around those small instances, the bigger stuff starts rolling at you, and you realize, geez, I made the wrong decision. I guess maybe I'm not a leader. All this time I thought, yeah, I'm a leader, and then I make this decision and the team crashes and you doubt yourself. Or you pick up and you learn. And someone asked me the other day, what was your biggest failure in your career, and or what was one of the biggest mistakes you made? And I had a hard time thinking about it. I know I've made a lot, but I think it's the way I perceive the past. Each mistake opens up opportunities, and that in itself, it is the path to leadership, is seeing and learning from every single mistake and not being afraid to make them. Because as you make them, you get stronger, you learn, you analyze, and you move up. And I've made some huge ones along the way, but those were the greatest lessons and the greatest turning points, for sure.
So, in terms of your mindset, dealing with, making mistakes, taking a look, a lot of people, they get hung up on a mistake. And they get hung up and it just seems to defeat them. They don't know how to get through that. Is there a tool? Is there like a book? Or what was it that you sort of anchored on to get through that? I mean, just looking at it in a paradigm, but to even be able to look at a mistake with that paradigm that you've got, that's a tool. Where did you learn that from? Or did that just kind of come naturally?
Well, I think in those moments of mistake and those moments of failure, two things come into play. And depending on how you look at it, one is giant and one is small. Yeah. And it's facts and emotions. And some people don't even realize they're not dealing with any facts yet. They're dealing with some emotional statement, some emotional perception, and they got to learn how to like, wait a second, if I just remove this for a second, what's left? And if I look at that objectively, how big is this problem really, and how much data do I have?
Yeah.
And a lot of people realize, wait a second, I don't actually have all the facts yet, so I can't make a decision to be angry yet. So you go and gather more data and realize, no, wait a second, a lot of this was not within my control. So
yeah,
there's a group of people that made a mistake here, and you feel a little bit better, but you can still learn from it.
Yeah.
But it's that fact gathering piece and that more objective analysis, remove the emotions, I find that pushes me through those moments of failure.
Wow, awesome. You know, when it gets into sales, you know, you said that you put together programs for other managers and other people. You know, what's your process for auditing? If you're watching a sales process go along, how do you start? You know, do you have it broken apart into little pieces? Are there specific segments of a process that you're going to see and recognize, and like, this is exactly where we need to fine tune this?
Yep.
Or yeah. So what is that process for you?
Well, I mean, you really have to break down a sales process or a conversation process, as I'd prefer to call it, into, again, coming back to the objective piece. You can't, any step that you build that is open to subjective criticism is going to be tough to coach.
Yeah.
So the more you can break it down into these objective yes/no situations, the better you're going to be able to compare it to a standard that you set. This is how great I want to be in this small step, and this is what I did. When I compare the two, they're not quite what I want. So what do I got to do to get here?
Yeah.
But the more you look at the big picture, just like learning how to golf, the more you realize, geez, I suck at golfing. But maybe today I can learn how to position myself, just my hips, for the day. Okay, now I'm a little bit better at golfing. I'm not a great golfer yet, but I'm really good with my hips.
Yeah.
So I'm one step closer.
Yeah. Well, and you know, in the sales process, it's so dynamic because there's so many intricacies at play. Like, there's emotions, there's the state of the other person, there's body language, there's tonality, there's all of these different things, first impressions. And you know, when you're teaching people how to sell. If you were to say from start to finish, is there a guideline that people should have a mental checklist to follow?
It's tough because it really depends on the situation in the sales process. I mean, there's definitely a universal concept a lot of salespeople can follow. But then when you start to apply different backgrounds and different types of customers, you're going to have to add or remove more steps. But I guess to answer your question, forget the steps for a second. You really just got to come in with the ability to have a conversation and be likable. Yeah. If you can come in with that, it's really easy to layer on any steps after that. If you can think back to the past of time where, like, you know, I've held a conversation and I find myself to be fairly likable, even in certain situations, whether you're not in others. As long as you got a few memories where you were able to do that, you're in good hands when it comes to any amount of steps of selling.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I remember when you were telling me how to sell with. I think it started with an E, and then there was some
E's. Yes.
Yeah. Establish their needs.
But that's the funny thing about all these. I've seen a lot of sales processes, especially in retail, and they're just worded differently, but it's essentially the same thing.
It's the same thing. Yeah. Ask questions, get liked, and you know, being genuinely interested in people, right? Yeah. But I mean, you're a rapport master. I mean, I see you go out and you can just connect with people so naturally. And I know a lot of people, like even myself, the reason I admired that is because I never had that. I didn't have that ability. It was a real challenge to learn that skill. Now, you know, when you're teaching sales, really it's about teaching connections. So is there a technique that you have to build that instant rapport with people? I mean, maybe you should just call it the instant rapport technique, whatever, but...
Well, it's not always instant. There's some times where I think I know what I'm about to do to build rapport, and it just doesn't work. I just like the fact that statistically it does work. Yeah. But you got to go in and try to ask yourself, okay, what will probably work in this situation based on your experience, and you get better at it. Yeah. I find with today's generation of social media and narcissism, a lot of people are kind of into themselves. They're not going to offer information about their life, so I find there's a new approach now when you walk up and you want to build rapport with a stranger. And it's not about asking questions and gathering information. Sometimes you just got to go up and give them information and see how they react. It's like, hey, let me give you some stuff about myself. Oh, cool, you can relate to that one piece? Let's really talk about that for a while. Now look at us, we're laughing and we're comfortable. Yeah. Right? But sometimes you walk up and you give some information and people look at you like, dude, I've never done that before. What are you talking to me for? So it's hit and miss. Wow. But that's one way. I mean, another way The classic way of building rapport is, just trying to mirror someone and match a lot of what they're doing.
Yeah.
If you sense anxiety, it's almost like you got to have a bit of anxiety yourself and then bring them back down. For sure.
Yeah, the frequency is going to pair up, right? So it's a huge part of the sales process. And, because you've had a lot of success, you've been able to coach a lot of people, you've seen a lot of people go through things, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're in a sales process that just ruins everything or gets them hung up for a long period of time?
Well, the one biggest mistake I would say is the fear of failure. There's a book, To Sell is Human, and it's a new way of looking at the ABCs of selling. Instead of always be closing, it's attunement, buoyancy, and clarity.
Say that one more time. It's
attunement,
attunement,
which is building rapport and then matching.
Yeah.
Buoyancy, which is being unafraid of failing.
Yeah.
And clarity, just being able to really clearly relay your message. But the buoyancy piece really hones in on, I think, the one thing that makes a lot of young salespeople fail. It's like, okay, I'm going to ask this person a lot of questions they'll probably say no to. And then they get a few of those no's and realize this sucks. I'm in this job or I'm getting a ton of no's. But when they change that paradigm and go, wait a second, the more no's I get, the more money I make. Think about it. Because you're trying harder each time and those no's go down and down and down. But in the beginning, you need a ton of them. If you're getting a ton of no's, you're doing a great job. Because you're asking risky questions. And a lot of salespeople don't want to do that. They go for the easy thing. It's like, this guy seems like he wants this, so I'm going to ask him if he wants that. Even though there's a 10% possibility he'll want this and this and this too, the risk is too high, so I'm not going to ask it. Because I hate the word no, right? And they just can't seem to get used to that word no, but no is gold.
Yeah. Every no is closer to gold.
And no is information.
Yeah. You're gathering intel.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting that over the fear of failure. What about emotionally? Do people make big mistakes emotionally? I mean, when they get into the whole sales field. I mean, I know it was really tough for me. I think you had to push me in front of somebody so I could even go talk to them. You're like, come on, it's your turn. I was sweating profusely. I was a mess. But I mean, I wasn't even anchored onto fear. I was just nervous. I didn't know how to deal with nervous energy. I don't know if nervous energy is fear so much as just untapped, unknown energy. And
well, I think it's because when I met you, it was at the gym. And when you're in your element and you're at the gym, you'll talk to anybody. You're this natural conversationalist.
Yeah.
And you forgot that you're still that when you're on the sales floor. You thought, okay, I'm acting now. The camera's on. I got to play this role of a salesperson. But what I wanted you to be was that same guy I met at the gym. And after a while, you got that. Wait a second, I'm really good at having conversations. And in a sale, that works really well. Yeah. So let me just relax here and be myself.
Yeah. I think that's a huge thing right there. Is just helping people understand. You really just got to relax and be yourself. There's no actual process. And I think you stripped it right at the very beginning when you said it's not sales, it's a conversation process, right? It's just learning how to have a conversation that moves people forward towards the buy.
Well, another quote I love is, in any conversation, there's only two states of mind you have. You're either persuading or being persuaded. Yeah. There's really no other option.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I want to ask you just two more questions. Number one is, do you have a morning routine? You've got a lot of stuff on your plate. You got a huge routine throughout your day. Not a routine, but a huge amount of work that you got to get done. What's the routine that you follow? Do you have anything that works for you that is maybe has a positive compounding effect that you've been noticing?
Absolutely. It's funny you say that, actually, because morning routine is something I struggled with, and I realized you got to eat the frog first and do a lot of the stuff you don't want to do later on in the day.
I usually have water before the frog.
So you got to give it a try. So I like that concept, because you want to cram a lot of the stuff that requires your best thinking, because that's the quiet time where you can handle a lot of those things and just get it out of the way before you move on with the rest of the day. I like to get up at 5 in the morning. Every other day that includes a workout. I like to drink a lot of water in the morning, get out in the patio and just breathe in some fresh air. And I realize in the morning, the productivity of my thought process is about triple what it is at about 7 p.m. or 8 o'clock. So when I get home and I'm like, geez, I didn't get all that work done, and I'm trying to work on it at 7 o'clock at night, I'm moving like not even half as fast as I could at 5 in the morning. So
Yeah.
I'll make sure that work gets done at 5 in the morning so I can just be myself and get out there and have conversations by the time it's time to leave the house.
Nice.
For sure.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think morning routines are so powerful.
Yeah.
Now, is there any favorite books that you've got to recommend to people?
Tons. I mean, it's too hard for me to recommend, so I'm thinking of some of the recent ones. You kept saying the word compound. I love the compound effect. I absolutely love it. I felt like when I read that, it was making sense of things that I've been doing for years. And it's looking at those little pieces that build great things.
Yeah.
And the more you examine those little objective pieces, the more you realize what you're building is a stronger foundation. I love that concept. One I'm reading recently is The Talent Code.
The Talent Code, okay.
Yeah. Great book that shows statistical proof of people that have achieved great things in an environment where people like them have never done that before, and how their minds work. And like, what's a good example? I'd say in South Korea, there's never been a female golfer before 1980s that's ever been in the LPGA or in the Olympics. But when one woman decided to defy those odds and show everybody that doesn't matter, we can still do it, suddenly you fast forward to 2016, and I think 30 to 40% of the women golfers in the Olympics are from South Korea, because she inspired everyone to realize it's just a limiting belief.
Yeah.
To think that South Korean women can't golf.
Wow.
And the book is about people who've shattered those limiting beliefs and made people realize there is no reason why you can't do whatever you want to do. It's not your upbringing, it's not who you are, it's not the country you live in, it's just your mind.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Wow. Awesome, man. Is there any last keys to success or bits of advice? This could anything. Life advice, sales advice, and then also I know that you're working on some coaching platforms or something like that. So anybody, if you ever want to get a hold of Trevor, I mean, they can find you on just social media.
Yeah.
I'll put a link next to the video as well, so you can take a look at that. If you ever want to get a hold of Trevor, if you want to learn more about sales and coaching processes, he's a guy who can help put that stuff together for you in a really, really powerful way. But as far as it goes with, last bits of advice, anything you want to throw out there for the people?
Sure. A lot of young leaders have asked me, what's the one thing I need to be great at? If there's 20 things, if there's 30 things, what's the one thing? And I've always found that of all the leaders I've seen, whether it's at VP level, president level, whatever it may be, the one thing the great ones have in common is the ability to communicate very well and present in front of an audience and capture people. I mean, I've seen guys with PhDs, double PhDs and masters, like all kinds of letters to their names and a business card that needs 2 business cards to hold all their great titles, but they get in front of people and they just can't speak. And yet I've seen people with no academic experience at all speak and just capture an entire room of 500 people. So my one thing I tell a lot of young leaders is learn how to speak, learn how to converse, learn how to capture an audience. Yeah. The rest will come, but man, nail that one thing for sure.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
You bet. My pleasure.
And look forward to getting to know more from you. So take care, guys.
Thank you.